Today I want to talk to you about the four aims of punishment. These are important for us to understand in our relationship to the law and how we expect the law to be executed on behalf of the general welfare of society. The first aim of punishment is retribution. Retribution is merely getting even. It's an eye for an eye and it's a tooth for tooth. You do the crime, you're going to do the time. To the proportion of damage that you commit yourself to when you commit a crime, that's to the proportion of punishment that we will inflict upon you for having committed the crime. It's important that we understand that this is not intended to protect society. It is simply getting even. There's a phrase you need to remember. You will see this on your exam. It's called simple justice. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You do the crime, you're going to do the time. To the degree that you inflict damage on society, we inflict damage on you in like kind. Now, this has been confused at times with the Hammurabi law. We call that an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And we can say that, but the Hammurabi law was put into place to make sure that penalties did not exceed the nature of the crime. Now, if someone kills someone and we feel justified in taking their life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, you take someone's time off the planet by killing them, we take your time off the planet by executing you. That's a fair understanding of Hammurabi's law. But Hammurabi's law initially was initiated to make sure that punishments did not exceed the crime. It was a principle of fairness. Just so you understand that. Again, retribution is a matter of simple justice. Its intent is not to protect society. It's to get even with the criminal for having violated the general welfare of society. Now, here's what you have to understand. Retribution does end up protecting society. If you remove a killer from society, you have protected society from being murdered inadvertently again by the intention of the same killer who's already shown himself to be disposed to murder an innocent person in the first place. But that's not the intent of retribution. Okay? Intent to protect society comes under the protection aim of punishment. When we protect society, we remove the individual from society, put them in a secure location, a jail or a prison, and we prevent them from committing the same form of crime. For lesser crimes, obviously, we're not going to execute people, but we are going to limit their freedom. Again, put them in a jail setting or a prison setting for a specific amount of time, and therefore not enable them to be able to incur harm against the general population, the innocent people who obey the law. When we execute a murderer, we are preventing them from committing another murder, obviously. So retribution and prevention can both apply to the death penalty. But again, you must make this distinction. It's very important. You'll see this distinction on your exam. Retribution is not meant to protect society. It is merely designed to get even with the criminal. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. We call that simple justice. Terribly important you remember that term. Prevention is designed to protect society from further injury. If we apply prevention to a murderer and we execute them, then they have paid an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life, and we have prevented them from executing other people. The aim of prevention is to protect society. The aim of retribution is merely to get even. Now, the aim of deterrence is to deter people from committing crimes in the first place. For example, I have shared with you since the beginning of the semester that from the moment you're born, you're automatically put in this invisible box that's bounded by rules that become the laws of our society. These laws have external penalties that we hope individuals will internalize and on their own decide that they're not going to violate the law. So deterrence uses external penalties through repetition and experience, hoping that the individuals in society will internalize these possible external penalties and will be deterred from committing crime. Deterrence works on people who are disposed not to want to experience penalties. Again, they begin externally. We internalize them. That's why we don't speed. If we are speeding and a police officer comes up behind us and the red lights go on and we know we're speeding, even if it's a few miles over the speed limit, an adrenaline rush usually happens. We say, oh, I hope he isn't stopping me for speeding. We check our speedometer, make sure we're not going too far over the speed limit. And when the police officer goes by us and chasing someone who is going faster and previously passed us a few miles before, we feel relieved because the external penalty has kicked in an internal judgment We know that we were speeding. We may be grateful we didn't get stopped for speeding this time. Maybe it will even cause us not to exceed the speed limit. So deterrence works on that group of people. Again, I'm going to guesstimate about 90% of the people who have internalized external penalties, and these external penalties acts as a deterrence to us, as I say, putting our hairy toe over the line and violating the law. Finally, there's reform. We know that there's a small group of people in first-time offenses who we can influence and perhaps change their direction of lifestyle from a life of crime to a life of lawful obedience. We don't know who they are, but we know that first-time offenders are prone to what we call rehab or reform. And about 1/3 of them we can appeal to and reform their behavior and get them to move from behavior of illegal activity to behavior of legal activity. With lesser crimes, we run a lesser risk if we misjudge someone's intent. We believe this person is reformable, they follow a program, they do everything that we've asked them to do, then we release them, and lo and behold, they commit another crime. Okay, first time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me. You're not going to get another chance at reform. We want to try and reform people because people can be reformed. There's a value to human life. If we can change the direction of someone's life from criminality to lawfulness, why not make the intent? When the penalties and the suffering to the general welfare of society are very low, petty crimes, it seems reasonable to make that attempt. Of course, as the penalty of the crime goes up and the seriousness of the crime goes up, again, we're talking about capital punishment, someone's a murderer, we know that 1 out of 10 will commit murder again. Most murderers are people who are premeditated murderers, and they intend to kill one person. Maybe they might kill a second, but usually it's just one person. So if we can deter them again, fine, then we have saved society. We have turned them around, and they become what we call lawful citizens. However, it's the 1 out of 10, the professional killer or the serial killer. Again, first time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me. There's no stopping these people from killing. That's either their profession or their sickness in the area of serial killers. So reform works reasonably well with lesser crimes, first-time offenders. When the penalty of the crime and the egregiousness of the crime against the general welfare of society goes up the scale, we take a much bigger risk in trying to reform those people, and many people in society, because they know our success rate is 1 out of 3, are not willing to take the risk. So again, in summation, retribution, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It is not meant to protect society. It's called simple justice. It's revenge. You do something to me, we will do something to you in like kind. It does protect society, but that's not the aim of retributive punishment or retributive justice. Prevention is designed to prevent society from further harm for some period of time. When we execute a murder, obviously it's for the rest of that person's time because we take their time away from them. Deterrence works on those who are predisposed to internalize the external penalties, and most of us, the great majority of us, stay within the boundaries of the law, and we are not tempted to move without them because we don't experience the negative penalties of violating the law. And finally, reform does work on 1 out of 3 by average. We know these statistics are true, but we don't know who it's going to work on, so we're willing to try it on lesser penalties as the egregiousness of the offense goes higher and higher. We put ourselves at a greater risk, and not many people are willing to do that anymore.